Great, thank you. Welcome everyone to the Town of Greater Napanee Committee of Adjustment for the 10th day of September 2024. Just before we get started, I just want to remind everyone this evening's meeting is being live streamed via our YouTube channel. So there'll be folks at home that are watching our meeting this evening, and if they're busy and aren't available to watch it this evening, they have the ability to watch it anytime after that. It'll be placed on our YouTube channel, and it'll be there forever and ever and ever. So welcome everyone, and we'll get started. We're going to call the meeting to order. I'll look for a motion of the agenda as presented. Moved by Deputy Mayor Cower, seconded by Councillor Martin. If there's no further comments, questions, or concerns, all in favor of that motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof? Seeing none. Look for a motion for the adoption of the minutes for the 9th of July 2024. Moved by Councillor Pennell, seconded by Councillor Hicks. If there's no further comments, questions, or concerns, all in favor of that motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. First matter is land severance. Land severance application PLCOR 2024-008 1425775 Ontario Inc. 7626 County Road 2. Parcel to be created is located immediately east of 7656 County Road 2. Legal description, concession 6, part lot 26, former Geographic Township of North Fredericksburg. And before we get, and I think this matter is related to two other matters. Am I correct, Mr. Nobes?
Excuse me, through your worship, yes, that is correct. So items 5.1, 5.2, and 5.3 are all associated with the same property, and these are being brought back from a previous meeting.
Great, thank you. And I know the applicant is here. Is there anyone else to speak for or against this application? We'll give you an opportunity to speak for or against it when Mr. Nobes is done, and welcome. Michael, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Worship. As previously mentioned, this item is coming back from a previous Committee of Adjustment decision to defer pending further hydraulic and hydrologic investigations at the request of the CRCA. So those have been undertaken, and they were predominantly with regard to a proposed driveway crossing of the watercourse that traverses the southerly portions of the site. So this application that we're speaking about, item 5.1, was sort of lumped into the mix so that all three could be considered together. However, it's not subject to the same watercourse and hydraulic evaluation. So this lot is proposed to be created on County Road 2, 3.6 hectares in area, and has been reviewed by staff. There was a minimum distance separation calculation undertaken by the proponent's planner. Staff are in concurrence with the findings of that, so the lot would be compliant from a minimum distance separation perspective. We've undertaken a on-site sewage review, and we're proposing conditions to install a well and undertake a hydrogeological investigation. Given the density of development in the area, staff are of the opinion that we would want to be sure that we're not going to cause adverse impacts to neighbors as a result of a new lot being created and new water supply well being installed. So the county has provided a condition that the existing entrance serving the property be removed and that a mutual drive be installed at the common lot line. So that is included as condition number 6 for the committee's attention. So that's commonplace for the county to request this, where there are a number of entrances in close proximity to each other, where there's new lot creation being proposed. This just eliminates an additional entrance such that the new lot would be compliant with the county's entrance permitting bylaw. So the existing entrance would be removed and effectively relocated to the common lot line, and there would be mutual easements for each lot, the new lot and the retained lot, for access over that mutual drive. So if there are any questions, I would be happy to answer them. Condition 9 is consistent with the next two applications, where we're proposing that the lots be rezoned to the rural residential zoning, because they're partially zoned now. They're partial hamlet, partial rural res. So it's just a mixed bag of different zoning, and we're looking to harmonize the zoning on all of the lots ultimately, if the committee decides to impose that condition.
Great, thanks, Michael. Is there any questions for Michael with respect to this application? Go ahead, Councillor Pennell.
Thank you, Worship, through you. Michael, thanks for this report. My question is about the MDS. In the report on the MDS, it does make mention that there's homes that are closer than this. And is that why, how does that work with grandfathering, or just could you maybe explain this to me, please?
Sure. So through your worship, our zoning bylaw effectively says new lot creation shall be compliant with OMAFR guidelines, and OMAFR guidelines are then immediately referenced when we're doing MDS calculations. Within that, within the guidelines themselves, there are a number of criteria that you go through to determine what ultimately the setback needs to be. One of those criteria is where there's a livestock facility, and within sort of the viewing angle, if you will, from that facility towards the new lot to be created, if there are a threshold number of existing closer dwellings, then the minimum distance separation becomes the furthest of those closer, I think it's four. So 4 existing dwellings that are closer than the lot to be created, the minimum then becomes the furthest of those 4, if that makes sense. So this is beyond that, so therefore it's compliant with that guideline.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Pennell. Are there any other questions or comments for Michael? Seeing none, we do have a staff recommendation the committee receive for information the technical report regarding application PLCOR 2024-008 and further to receive and further the application to sever a lot 3.6 hectares in area from a 9.7 hectare parcel be granted subject to a number of conditions that are contained within the agenda. Moved by Councillor Shank, seconded by Councillor Pennell. If there's no further comments, questions, or concerns, all in favor of that motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. Next matter, 5.2 on our agenda. Again, it's related. Michael, Land Severance Application PLCOR 2024-009, 1425775, Ontario Inc., 7626 County Road 2. Parcel to be created is immediately east of 1147 Little Creek Road. Legal description, concession 6, part lot 25, former Geographic Township of North Fredericksburg. And once again, I know the applicant is here. Is there anyone here to speak other than the applicant to speak for or against? Seeing none, Michael, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Worship. So as mentioned, this is coming back to the committee now that we have received the hydraulic analysis and crossing design undertaken by the proponent's engineering consultant. That design and that report has subsequently been reviewed by the CRCA, who ultimately requested the design efforts. The CRCA is in concurrence with the findings of those. So ultimately what had happened was there was a water course identified fairly late in the process previously, and the CRCA said we need to deal with this in some fashion. They requested deferral pending the outcome of these studies. So that they've been undertaken. And the work that was done was to determine the amount of flow going through that water course in a worst case scenario, and undertake a design to accommodate that flow with a crossing, so a large culvert properly designed and situated such that those flows are unimpeded and they're not to be impacting downstream or upstream properties. So those efforts were undertaken. The CRCA is reviewed. Staff have also reviewed and are in agreement with the findings. So we're recommending deferral because a entrance and a crossing ultimately can be adequately addressed on the site for a future lot. And we're recommending, again, a well be installed, hydrogeological review be undertaken as part of that, given the density of development in the immediate area. We're recommending, again, the rezoning to harmonize the rural residential zone on all of the lots. And we're proposing to take road widening on Little Creek Road to safeguard any future efforts that we need to undertake in the future on that road.
Great. Thanks, Michael. Councillor Pennell.
Thank you, Worship. Through you, Michael, you mentioned that you're wishing to defer this.
Through your worship, no, we were recommending approval tonight. Sorry if I was confusing there, but I was just trying to convey that we had previously deferred it based on the request of the CRCA, but we're now in a position where we are recommending approval, and given that the CRCA is in concurrence with the findings of the requested studies.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Pennell. Is there any other questions or comments? Seeing none, we do have a staff recommendation. The committee received for information the technical report regarding application PLCOR 2024-009, and further that the application to sever a lot 3.8 hectares in area from a 9.7 hectare parcel be granted, subject to a number of conditions that are contained within our agenda this evening. Moved by Councillor Pennell, seconded by Deputy Mayor Calver. If there's no further comments, questions, or concerns, all in favor of that motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. And the third part to this matter, Mr. Nobes, is Land Severance Application PLCOR 2024-010-142-575 Ontario Inc. 7626 County Road 2, parcel to be created is immediately west of 1181 Little Creek Road. Legal description of Concession 6, Part Lot 25, former Geographic Township of North Fredericksburg. And once again, we do have the applicant here this evening. Is there anyone else that would like to speak for or against this application? Seeing none, the floor is yours, Mr. Nobes.
Thank you, Worship. Not much to add beyond the most recent application that was just approved by the committee. I will note that this specific lot does not require crossing of that water course to accommodate a driveway, so it's able to be installed immediately east of the crossing. So that crossing was specific to the previous application. This lot is able to be having access gained directly from Little Creek Road without impacting that water course or requiring any special type crossing. So again, same conditions as on the previous application that was just approved by the committee.
Great, thanks, Mike. Is there any questions or comments with respect to Mike's report or the application? Seeing none, we do have a staff recommendation that the committee received for information the technical report regarding application PLCOR 2024-010, and further that the application to sever a 1.9 hectare in area lot from a 9.7 hectare parcel to be granted, subject to a number of conditions that are contained within our agenda before us this evening. Moved by Councillor Pennell, seconded by Councillor Shank. If there's no further comments, questions, or concerns, all in favor of that motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. Next matter, 5.4 on our agenda, Land Severance Application PLCOR 2024-027, 1018105 Ontario Inc., 6262 County Road 9. Parcel to be created is immediately west of 6278 County Road 9. Legal description of Concession 3, Part Lot 5, former Geographic Township of North Fredericksburg. And once again, is there anyone here to speak for or against this application this evening? Seeing none, the floor is yours, Mike.
Thank you, Worship. The application before the committee here is to create a residential sized lot from the southeast corner of the property under consideration. The balance of the lands would remain under agricultural use. Within the planning report furnished by the proponent, there is a quite zoomed in image of our Schedule A in our official plan, which shows the land use designations and boundaries. This portion of the property where the lot is being proposed to be created is contained within the rural designation where lot creation is permitted. Immediately north thereof is contained into the prime agricultural designation. So the northerly lot limit is following that boundary effectively, where it's not extending into the prime agricultural designation. And staff are supportive of the application given the designation that's in place. We're recommending installation of a well in addition to a hydrogeological review being undertaken. The county again has a requirement for a mutual drive, and I shouldn't say mutual drive, but the existing entrance serving the agricultural parcel today shall be used for the future residential lot to be created, but also that a right-of-way be established for access into the rear agricultural lands. So the county does not want to see yet another entrance. They want to see the same number of entrances in place today with upgrades being made to it and a right-of-way for access to be established. So it's operating this way today for access to the agricultural lands, and the county is looking to sort of effectively lock that in by taking a 1 foot reserve across the frontage and only allowing access in that existing entrance location. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
Okay, thanks, Michael. Is there any questions for Michael with respect to this application? Seeing none, we do have a recommendation that the committee receive for information the technical report regarding application PLCOR 2024-027 and further that the application to sever a lot 0.8 hectares in area together with a right-of-way for agricultural access in favor of the retained parcel be granted subject to a number of conditions that are contained within our agenda. Go ahead, Michael.
And thank you, Worship. I just was reluctant to advise the committee. We are also including a condition for approval of a minor variance under condition number 7. The retained parcel's frontage would be at 83 meters, whereas the requirement under the zoning is 100 for the agricultural land. Again, staff are supportive. Really, the functioning of this land is not going to change. It's just unfortunate that they are shy 17 meters of frontage, but it really won't change the overall functionality of the land. Just wanted to raise that.
Great, thanks, Michael. And we'll see that later on in this agenda, I suspect. So is there any questions or comments? We'll look for a mover and seconder to put it on the floor. Moved by Councillor Shank, second by Councillor Hicks. Is there any further comments, questions, or concerns with respect to the application? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. Next matter is land severance application PLCOR 2024-032 M and L Cuffle 6204 County Road 9 legal description concession 3 part lot 5 former Geographic Township of North Fredericksburg. And once again, is there anyone here to speak for or against this application this evening? Yes, sir. And your name is? Yeah, I'm sure we can. We'll let Mr. Nobes describe what we're going to do this evening, and then we'll get you to come up and just so the folks at home can hear us, we have to get you to come up and use the microphone so that everybody at home can hear that. So we'll let Michael do his thing first, and then I'm going to give you an opportunity to speak to just what you've told us here now. So go ahead, Michael.
Thank you, Worship. So I'll give a brief overview of the application where staff are recommending approval of the application as presented. So this was to create a 0.8 hectare existing developed residential lot from an agricultural land holding. So this is effectively removing the house from the farm. The lot is already developed with a sewage system, and the well is actually located across the road by my understanding. So we're proposing to include a condition where an easement is to be provided on the southerly parcel, so effectively the water side on the other side of County Road 9, in favor of the lot on the north side. Both are under the same ownership, and both most likely would always be conveyed together in the future. But given the ownership of the county bisecting the land, it does split it up into 2 separate parcels that could be independently conveyed. So we're proposing that an easement be established on title to allow for continued access to and use of that well on the south side. In addition, the barn, from staff's understanding, it's not currently used for livestock. However, it could be at some point in the future. So we're proposing a condition that it either be demolished or a change of use permit be obtained to solely limit it to being used for agricultural storage. Just to give the applicant some flexibility in what they would like to do there with the structure. In case they had plans to demolish it, then they wouldn't need to get a change of use permit. But if they wanted to keep it, they could get a change of use permit to ensure we have MDS compliance. Additionally, a minor variance would be required, similar to the previous application, for the retained lot where the road frontage is only 60 meters in length. For the retained agricultural parcel. But again, it's the way that it's functioning today, it wouldn't change. Really, it's got its own independent access. And realistically, there's going to be no physical change on the ground at the end of the day. So staff are supportive of the application. It's in the rural designation, and it's keeping the balance of the farmland intact. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that the committee might have.
Okay, thanks, Michael. We'll just see if the committee has any questions of Michael first, and then, sir, we'll get you to come up and we'll give you an opportunity to say your piece. Is there any questions of Michael with respect to go ahead, Councillor Pennell.
Thank you, Worship. Through you, Michael. Thanks for this report. A couple questions. One is that's noted in the report that there's a garage that's located close to County Road 9. And it's encroaching. Is it encroaching now or will only become encroaching once they surrender the extra land for the wide roading?
Through your worship, I don't know with certainty if it's encroaching into the currently owned width of the county right-of-way. However, if the application were to proceed, the county is effectively requiring that a condition for widening be provided. And when that widening were to occur, then it would ultimately be. So they've undertaken that at the end of the day, if this is approved, it will become encroaching. I don't know if it is today under their current ownership, unfortunately.
If it is deemed to be encroaching, then it's my understanding it can stay until it falls down, then it cannot be rebuilt.
Through your worship, that is my understanding is the county is, I'll say amenable to allowing these structures to remain within the county road allowance until such time as the county, might need to do some widening efforts. And if that building is causing issue, then it would need to be removed. But up until that time, the county is open to allowing them to remain to not cause undue hardship to property owners.
Okay, great. Thank you. And just back to the minor variance, it's encroaching on not being very minor anymore with it being 60% of it. And I understand your reasoning of it. It's not changing the existing use of it as it is right now. I'm just wondering with this minor variance, would that now allow for a future for a home to be built onto that property?
Through your worship, yes, effectively it would. So the variance is predominantly to allow for the continued use of the agricultural land. When there's a change in parcel fabric, effectively, the intention is to ideally have all lots that are fully compliant with the zoning bylaw. It's not always possible. That's where the variance permissions come into place from the Planning Act. What this variance would allow is for the continued compliant use of the balance of the land for agricultural use. If this variance were not to proceed, the retained land is certainly allowed to be used for residents because it would meet that minimum. But this is just extending that permission to allow the continued agricultural use.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pennell. Is there any other questions or comments for Michael? Seeing none. Okay, come on up, sir. If you want to come up to the front of the desk there, or right up here to the chair. There's going to be a microphone there in front of you. And what you're going to need to do is there's a button there on the right-hand side that says talk. You have to push the button and hold it. And because if you don't push it and hold it when you're going to talk, the folks at home can't hear you. And then my phone starts to ring. So we just have to make sure that when you're talking, you push the button. And then when you're done talking, just release the button. So whenever you're ready, the floor is yours. Go ahead, Mike.
Yes, as Mr. Nobles had mentioned, everything that he said is correct. To address Mr. Pennell's concern about the garage that's encroaching, that's currently already in place, and the area that's being severed, the property line that we're looking to modify, that's not part of it. The garage specifically is on the west side of the property. We're looking to sever the eastern corner of it.
Yep. Go ahead, Councillor Pennell. I think he wants to ask a question again. Go ahead.
Thank you, Worship, through you. Yeah, my only concern was so that there's no undue harsh, so that you didn't have to move it or tear down. Because if it was where I was going to go with the story was, why can the county not take it from the other side of the road for the road widening? That's what it was. So I understand that where the severance was going to be, but I was just making sure that we didn't have to do anything right away with that garage. That was my concern on it. Was more to protect you.
Understood. Yes, the easement in the barn is on the opposite end of the property is where the garage and the current existing residence is.
Yeah, great. Go ahead. You can continue.
I think that's all I got. I think Mr. Nobles touched on everything that he's mentioned was correct. The use of the existing property or the use of the property to be severed is strictly like a 2-acre parcel, which includes the house and the garage, looking to retain the prime agricultural land with potential to build in the future, but not intended to immediately do so. And this sort of decision is based on recent changes in my employment or options in my employment. So This is sort of the reason for the severance. Yes, I'd like to defer an official decision, at least till the next meeting in 2 weeks. Again, I sort of have some plates in the air from an employment perspective. I'd like to iron out first before making this a final decision.
And that's fair, sir. And I think that's what you said earlier, that you were looking at maybe for a deferral. We are in a position to deal with it tonight, but I think under the circumstances, it's probably in everybody's best interest that we defer this for at least till our next committee of adjustment, and that'll give you an opportunity to work through any details with Mr. Nobes if there are any details that have to be done. So if you're content with that, then that's what we'll do.
I'm content with that. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you. Is there any further questions? That go.
I just moved to defer until the applicant has time and feels that he would like to bring it back.
Great. We have, sorry, go ahead, Mike.
Just through your worship, just for the committee's awareness, we'll hold off on bringing this back until Mr. Cuthell gives us the nod that he's ready to proceed.
So we'll note and receive your report and defer it to a future date, at which time Mr. Nopes will bring it back in front of us. Moved by Councillor Shank, seconded by Councillor Hicks. And Madam Clerk, do you have what you need? Great. Is there any further comments, questions, or concerns? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion that's on the floor. Opposed, motion's carried. Thanks, folks. Thanks, Mike. Thanks,
everybody.
Next matter up is a law addition application PLLA 2024-029 G Miller 776 Town Line Road. Property to receive a lot addition is 2025 Story Street. Legal description, concession 3, part lot 27, former Geographic Township of North Fredericksburg. And is there anyone here to speak for or against this application? Seeing none, the floor is yours, Michael.
Thank you, Worship. So this application is to allow for a minor lot line adjustment between two properties on Town Line Road and Story Street, effectively at the southwest corner of Town Line and Story Street. There's a drainage course that runs between the properties, and effectively it, I'll say, bisects the proposed retained land, and it's more or less not heavily used for the proponent. And my understanding is it's the mother of, I think, the daughter to receive the lot addition to enlarge her daughter's parcel ultimately. So it's a pretty small lot that's to receive that lot addition. This will give more flexibility in the future for, outbuildings or a new septic system or a new well, et cetera. So it gives a little bit more flexibility to that lot on Story Street. So staff are supportive.
Great. Thanks, Michael. Is there any questions or comments for Michael with respect to this application? Seeing none, we do have a recommendation that the committee receive for information the technical report regarding application PLL 2024-029, and further that the application permit a lot addition of 1 hectare to 2025 Story Street from 776 Town Line Road be approved, subject to a number of conditions that are contained within our agenda this evening. Moved by Councillor Hicks, seconded by Councillor Shank. If there's no further comments, questions, or concerns, all in favor of that motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. Next matter, lot addition application PLLA 2024-031. J. McMurran, 85 Dundas Street East. Property to receive lot addition is 91 Dundas Street East. Legal description, plan 82 Lot 6 West Adelphi Street. Part lots 4 and 5 North Dundas Street. Former Geographic Town of Napanee. And is there anyone here to speak for or against this application? Seeing none. Michael, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Worship. I'm hopeful staff's sketch helps to articulate what the request is here. Ultimately, the parcel providing the lot to the more easterly parcel is a T shape now, so it has frontage on Dundas and on Adelphi. And access into the rear parking lot is gained directly from Adelphi Street. The parcel to receive the lot addition has residential tenants in the building, and they don't have on-site parking, so it's not owned parking by that property. So both properties are owned by the same controlling entity. It's the same. It's a corporation and an individual who operates that corporation that owns the separate parcel. So they're just doing a lot line shift between their own properties effectively. But what this will do is give those tenants the ability to park on the actually owned private property of where they reside. So staff are supportive because it brings that property into compliance with the zoning bylaw to provide on-site parking for residential uses in the downtown. The lot addition, staff are proposing that it would be subject to a right-of-way to allow for continued access as it exists today. Really, again, you really wouldn't be able to notice a change on the ground as a result of this. It's more of a legal transaction on title, so that driveway in between the parking on the north and south sides of that parking area would remain to allow continued access into the rear of that retained parcel. So hope that is clear for the committee. It was a bit challenging for staff to understand exactly what the request was with the sketches that we were given. So hopefully this clarifies things.
Yeah, it does for me anyways. Thank you, Michael. Is there any questions or comments for Michael with respect to this application? Seeing none, we do have a recommendation that the committee receive for information the technical report regarding application PLLA 2024-031, and further that the application to permit a lot addition of 242 square meters to an abutting 400 square meters mixed commercial residential property to provide on-site parking for residents of 91 Dundas Street East, together with a right-of-way in favor of 85 Dundas Street East for access, be approved subject to a number of conditions that are contained within this agenda this evening. Moved by Councillor Martin, seconded by Deputy Mayor Calver. If there's no further comments, questions, or concerns, all in favor of that motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. Minor variance application. Minor variance application PLVAR 2024-020. K. Valainen, 24 Leonard Way, legal description, part lot A, concession 2, Bass Cove, formerly Geographic Township of Adolphus Town. And once again, do we have anyone here speaking for or against this application? Seeing none, Michael, the floor is yours. Oh, sorry, are you the applicant, sir? Okay, we'll give you an opportunity, and if there's any questions, we'll bring you up to the front and ask you. So thank you, sir. Michael, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Worship. So the proposal here is to construct a detached garage on this property. Unfortunately, this lot is very constrained from a depth perspective. It's pretty shallow. There's really not a lot of depth on the lot. Most of the lots down in this general area were created many years ago, and they were fairly small in size when regulations at the time were much more lenient with regard to setbacks from water bodies, right-of-ways, neighbors, etc. So dealing with an already fairly constrained lot here. So staff's primary concern was to ensure that this new garage is located out of any erosion hazards associated with the water body abutting, as well as the CRCA's primary concern as well. So CRCA have undertaken some fairly recent mapping updates in this area, and they're very confident in the limits of the hazard on this site. So they're supportive and they're in concurrence with the request that a variance be approved to allow for a setback of 17 meters from the high water mark rather than the typical required 30 meters. There's no room on this property to get any further back and still meet a front yard setback from the right of way. So the applicant is also requesting a slight reduction in the setback to the Leonard Way private road as well. So we've done as best as we can to get as far away from the water and as far away from Leonard Way as reasonably possible for this detached garage. And we're recommending that the variance be approved subject to section 45 sub 9 of the Planning Act, which will effectively really lock in this approval based on the site plan provided and not just give a blanket permission for any building on the site. It really is applicable just to this site plan only. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them of the committee.
Thank you. Thank you, Michael. Is there any questions for Michael with respect to this application? Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Calver.
Through your worship. So am I reading this right? There's already 4 sheds on the property and now we're sticking a garage on that said property?
Through your worship, yes, that is correct. So that caught staff's attention as well. So we wanted to ensure that the property would still be compliant from a lot coverage perspective. And the total lot area and the number of existing outbuildings plus the proposed garage would ultimately be compliant from a zoning bylaw perspective.
Okay, and what is the exact distance from the high water mark or the floodplain now for this new existing building?
Through you, your worship, I believe it's 17 meters, but I'll look to the applicant to confirm exactly what that dimension is.
Okay, so 41.7 feet. And I see the existing sunroom, the new sunroom existing, it's only 14.4 feet, is that correct?
Yeah, it looks like it at its closest point, I think. So yeah, according to the diagram anyway.
Through your worship, staff's understanding is that the request here is just for the garage. I'm uncertain what the new sunroom, where it's saying it's a little bit misleading. It says new sunroom, but existing footprint. I think it's an existing structure that they may wish to demolish and potentially rebuild on the same footprint. That might be the intent.
Yeah, but that's not part of this application this evening.
Through your worship, no. So the zoning bylaw allows for existing non-compliant buildings to be slightly modified as long as they're not, further being reduced in from a setback perspective. So if this sunroom were to be proposed to be built closer to the water with an extension, that wouldn't be compliant. But just to rebuild in the exact same footprint and slightly elevate it for flood proofing, that's permissible.
Okay, great. Thanks, Michael. Councillor Pennell.
Thank you, worship, through you. Michael, we've talked about this before, and I always, when we're looking at setbacks and stuff from high water marks, I just always wonder about what happens when and how much liable are we down the road if a flood happens here. So maybe you could just remind us all.
Yep, through your worship. So anytime an issue comes up where the municipality is rendering an approval, we're always going to be, brought into the discussion. But I think what staff are able to lean on here is that we're consulting with the professionals, which are the Conservation Authority, and they have the regulatory authority and responsibility from the province to oversee hazards such as this. So with the Conservation Authority ultimately endorsing the application, and ultimately they're also going to be issuing a permit to undertake these works in proximity to the water course. I think we would be in a good position to defend our decision in the event that something were to go awry. I would say there would probably be much more risk in the existing cottage being impacted than this proposed garage. And if that were the case, then the insurance company is going to be getting a phone call.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Pennell. Councillor Shank.
Mike, very familiar with the area. The only thing is this is site specific because we know that there's, as you can understand, there's 33 feet right away with the roofs there when they developed this years and years ago. But we had another where somebody else built without a building permit. This property is high enough on the Did Way. But the point is that it's a small community there. They're all small lots. So when this individual, if he's granted the approval to put his garage in, is 24 by 24. But the point is everybody else that it has to be explained to those individuals. It's site specific to your lot, to what your elevation is and what your footprint and everything else. It's just that when one person sees that happening and it's a small community, I know my phone's going to start ringing. So that's what I'm going to explain. Now, is that a correct statement by what I made?
Through your worship, yes, absolutely correct. And that is how staff explain inquiries such as this as well. So we get the same type of phone calls. You might get more, but we get the same type. And what we do is we always explain that each site, each request for a variance is always site specific. It's always based on just that property alone. We're not looking at the broader area like we would be doing with a general zoning bylaw update. Different story there, but in this instance, it's just solely looking at the very detailed specifics of this site.
Great, thanks, Counselor Shank. Is there any other questions or comments? Seeing none, we do have a recommendation that the committee receive for information the technical report regarding minor variance application PLVAR 2024-020, and further that the application requesting a variance from section 4.11BI of the Town of Greater Napanee zoning bylaw 0222 to reduce the minimum required setback from the high water mark from 30 meters to 17 meters, and from section 5.92 CI to reduce the front yard setback from 10 meters to 8 meters be approved, subject to the following. And further, that pursuant to section 45.9 of the Planning Act, the variances noted above the approved based on the works identified within the following drawing included within the agenda titled Plot Plan, drawing number P1 dated May 9th, 2024 by AMC Limited. Moved by Counselor Shank, seconded by Counselor Hicks. If there's no further comments, questions, or concerns, all in favor of that motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. Minor variance application PLVAR 2024-028 1018105 Ontario Inc. 6262 County Road 9, legal description concession 3, part lot 5, former Geographic Township of North Fredericksburg. And again, is there anyone here speaking for or against this matter? Seeing none, Michael, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Worship. So this is the variance that is included as a condition under a former item in the agenda that was just recently approved by the committee. So it's just, they're both lumped in together on the same agenda. I really don't have much more to add from a technical perspective, but staff are supportive of the application, given our review of the concurrent consent and variance applications that were submitted.
Great, thanks, Michael. Is there any questions or comments from Michael with respect to his presentation or report? Seeing none, we do have a recommendation the committee receive for information the technical report regarding minor variance application PLVAR 2024-028, and further that the application requesting a variance from the Town of Greater Napanee zoning bylaw 0222, section 5.6.3b, to reduce the frontage of a non-residential property from 100 meters to 83 meters be approved. Moved by Deputy Mayor Calver, seconded by Councillor Norrie. If there's no further comments, questions, or concerns, all in favor of that motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. And that's a good job, Michael. Thank you. We'll look for a motion for adjournment. Moved by Councillor Hicks, seconded by Councillor Shank. If there's no further comments, questions, or concerns, all in favor of that motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. Thanks, folks. We're going to take about a 10-minute break before we get into a regular session of council to allow some folks to move in and out of council chambers. Thanks again.